The Role of Bees in Pollination and Food Production documentary. Have you ever imagined a world without fruits, vegetables, and even coffee? What if I told you that the secret behind the production of more than 75% of the food we consume is in the small but mighty bees? In this documentary, you will discover how these insects work tirelessly to pollinate, ensuring biodiversity and food security on the planet. But here's the problem: bee populations are declining, and this threatens not only the environment, but also our very survival. Are we prepared for a world without them? What can we do to reverse this situation? If you want to understand the real importance of bees in your life, learn how to observe them and discover curious facts that will change your view of nature, watch until the end. After all, the future of our food may depend on what you learn today. Did you know that without bees, more than a third of our food would disappear? What would happen if these small details disappeared from Earth? The role of bees in pollination and food production. Introduction. Have you ever stopped to think about the impact that one small detail can have on your life? Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that fruits, vegetables, and even your favorite breakfast have simply disappeared. It seems like an impossible scenario, right? But believe me, this future may be closer than we imagine. Bees, these small winged beings, are responsible for more than 75% of the pollination of the plants that produce the food we consume daily. Without them, food production would collapse, food prices would soar, and Earth's biodiversity would be at risk. However, something growing is happening. Bee populations are advancing around the world. What does this mean for us? How could the extinction of one insect threaten the entire global food chain? In this documentary, you will discover that bees are the true engineers of our ecosystem, how they ensure our food security and, most importantly, what is driving these essential pollinators to the brink of extinction. Let's explore the main threats that put your survival at risk and what we can do to reverse this scenario before it's too late. If you've never paid much attention to bees, this video could completely change your perception of their importance in your life. Stay with me until the end and discover how the existence of these little beings is directly linked to our future. After all, protecting bees could be the key to ensuring food security for future generations. What are bees? When we think of bees, usually the first image that comes to mind is that of a small yellow and black design floating from flower to flower, collecting nectar to produce honey. But the truth is that bees are much more than that. They are part of an extremely diverse group of insects that play an essential role in nature and in maintaining life on the planet. Bees belong to the order Hymenoptera and the superfamily Apoidea, which includes thousands of different species. Many believe that all bees produce honey, but this is not true. In reality, there are more than 20,000 known species of bees, and the vast majority of them do not live in hives or produce honey. Some are solitary, others live in small groups, and there are also those who work in highly organized societies. Among the best known, we have the European bee, Apis mellifera, which is the main species used in honey production and agricultural pollination. However, there are many other native and wild species that play equally important roles in biodiversity. In Brazil, for example, we have ironless bees, such as Jataí, Uraçu, and Mandagari, which are essential for the pollination of native flora. But what really makes bees so special? The answer lies in their biology and social behavior. How do bees live? The life of bees is fascinating and extremely organized. Within a hive, each individual has a specific function, ensuring the perfect functioning of the colony. Bee society is basically divided into three main castes. The queen. The queen is the only fertile female in the hive, and her main function is to lay eggs to ensure the continuity of the colony. She can live for several years and is capable of laying up to 2,000 eggs per day. The queen also releases pheromones that maintain harmony and order within the hive. The workers. Workers are sterile female bees that perform practically all tasks within the hive. They build the combs, clean and protect the hive, care for the larvae, collect nectar and pollen, and even regulate the colony's internal temperature. Depending on age, they take on different roles throughout life. The drones. The drones are the males of the hive and have a single function: to fertilize the queen. Unlike workers, they do not have a sting and do not work in the hive. After mating, they die, as their sole biological purpose was fulfilled. Solitary bees and stingless bees. Although most people only know about social bees, the truth is that most bee species are solitary. These bees do not live in hives, do not produce honey and do not have a queen. Each female creates her own nest, lays eggs and confidentially maintains her profile. Islandless bees, like those native to Brazil, live in colonies and are extremely important for the pollination of tropical forests. Unlike the European bee, which can be harmful when it feels threatened, islandless bees do not attack humans, which makes them ideal for breeding in urban areas. How do bees interact with the environment? Bees not only pollinate plants and flowers, they also directly influence biodiversity and the stability of ecosystems. They play an essential role in the reproduction of countless plant species, many of which depend exclusively on them for the production of fruits and seeds. They also have an extremely advanced communication system. Through bee dances, they provide information about the location and quality of food sources to their other hive companions. This sophisticated communication ensures efficiency in the search for nectar and pollen. The relationship between bees and humans. The relationship between humans and bees has existed for thousands of years. There are records of beekeeping since ancient times, with civilizations such as the Egyptians, Greeks and Romans already taking advantage of the honey and wax from hives. However, the importance of bees goes far beyond honey production. They are responsible for pollinating more than 70% of the world's agricultural crops, ensuring the production of essential foods such as fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds. Unfortunately, despite their vital role in nature and the economy, bees are facing an alarming decline. In the next chapters, we will explore the reasons for this crisis and how it can directly affect all of our lives. If bees disappear, what will happen to food production? How will our survival be impacted? And, most importantly, what can we do to keep them before it's too late? These are questions that we will answer below. What is pollination and how does it occur? Pollination can happen in several ways. Some plants rely on wind or water to transport pollen from one flower to another. However, the vast majority of plants depend on pollinators, which are animals responsible for this transfer. Among them, bees are the most efficient and essential for the balance of ecosystems. The process is relatively simple, but incredibly sophisticated. When a bee lands on a flower to collect nectar, its main source of energy, its body comes into contact with the pollen grains present in the plant's reproductive structures. As she feeds, pollen sticks to microscopic pollen covering her body. When visiting another flower, part of this pollen is limited to the pistil, which is a female structure of the plant, allowing fertilization and, consequently, the formation of seeds and fruits. But bees are not the only ones responsible for this work. Other pollinators, such as butterflies, beetles, bats and birds, also play this role. However, bees are unbeatable when it comes to efficiency. They visit thousands of flowers a day and, due to their organized behavior and loyalty to certain plants, they guarantee a much higher pollination rate than other animals. Why is pollination so important? Pollination is not just a detail of nature, it is a fundamental pillar of life on the planet. Without it, plant reproduction would be compromised, with a significant reduction in food production, affecting biodiversity and directly impacting the global economy. Here are some of the main reasons why this process is essential. Food production. Approximately 75% of the world's agricultural crops depend, at least partially, on pollination by insects, especially bees. Fruits such as apples, strawberries, avocados, cherries and even the coffee we drink daily only exist thanks to this process. Biodiversity maintenance. Pollination allows a wide variety of plants to reproduce, ensuring a diversity of species and natural ecosystems. This strengthens food chains and keeps habitats balanced. Economy and sustainable agriculture. Modern agriculture directly depends on pollination. The economic contribution of bees to global agricultural production is estimated to be hundreds of billions of dollars per year. Without them, production costs would increase significantly, making food more expensive and scarce. Climate balance and forest preservation. Many trees and plants depend on pollination to reproduce and continue absorbing CO2 from the atmosphere. Without the presence of pollinators, these ecosystems would collapse, worsening the effects of climate change. How do bees choose the right flowers? Bees don't visit flowers randomly. They have an incredible ability to identify and memorize the best sources of nectar and pollen. Its navigation system is extremely sophisticated, using a combination of spatial memory, ultraviolet vision and pheromone communication to find the most productive flowers. Furthermore, Inside the hive, bees gather information through a fascinating behavior, the bee dance. When a bee finds a rich source of food, it returns to the hive and performs a series of specific movements that indicate the exact location of the bloom to its companions. The more vigorous a dance, the higher quality of the nectar source found. This mechanism ensures that the colony always explores the best pollination opportunities. The impact of bee decline on pollination. In recent years, bee populations have seen an alarming decline. Factors such as the prolonged use of pesticides, the destruction of natural habitats, climate change and global warming have contributed to this crisis. And if bees disappear, the impact will be devastating. Without pollination, crops essential for human and animal consumption would suffer drastic drops in production. This would lead to rising food prices, shortages of fruits, vegetables and grains, and the collapse of many ecosystems that depend on these plants. Countries like China already face this problem in some regions, where a pollination manual, done by humans, had to replace the work of bees. The problem? This process is inefficient, time-consuming and extremely expensive, making it impossible to replicate on a large scale. What can we do to protect bees? The good news is that there is still time to act. Small changes in our attitudes can have a big impact on the preservation of bees and, consequently, on global pollination. Here are some ways to contribute to this cause. Avoid using chemical pesticides. Many products used in agriculture and even in home gardens are highly toxic to bees. Opting for natural and sustainable alternatives can help maintain them. Plant flowers and trees that attract pollinators. Creating green spaces with species that provide nectar and pollen is an excellent way to support bees. Support producers who use ecological agricultural practices. The conscious consumption of organic products encourages agriculture that respects pollinators and the environment. Create shelters for solitary bees. Small houses for native bees can be installed in gardens and backyards, providing safe places for them to reproduce. Spread knowledge about the importance of bees. The more people are aware of this issue, the greater the chances of implementing meaningful changes to reverse the decline of these essential pollinators. Pollination is one of the most important natural processes for life on the planet, and bees are its main protagonists. They ensure food production, maintain biodiversity and sustain entire ecosystems. However, its existence is threatened, and the consequences of its extinction would be catastrophic. If we want a future with abundant food and preserved nature, we need to act now. Protecting bees isn't just a choice, it's a necessity. And each of us can make a difference in this fight. Threats to bees: the big problem. Bees play an essential role in nature and food production, but their existence is threatened. In recent decades, scientists and farmers have warned of an alarming decline in bee populations around the world. What is happening? What is causing these important pollinators to disappear? And what will be the consequences for us humans if we don't act in time? In this chapter, we will explore the main threats that are putting bees at risk and understand why this crisis represents one of the biggest environmental and agricultural challenges of our time. The use of pesticides, the invisible poison. One of the biggest threats to bees is pesticides. These chemicals, used to protect crops from pests, end up having a devastating effect on pollinators. Among the most dangerous are neonicotinoid, insecticides that attack the nervous system of insects. Even in small doses, these substances can disorientate bees, hampering their ability to find food and return to the hive. Additionally, pesticides compromise these insects' immune systems, making them more vulnerable to diseases and parasites. The problem is so serious that, in some parts of the world, something known as colony collapse disorder, CCD, has been identified. In this case, the worker bees simply disappear, leaving behind the queen and some young workers unable to support the hive. Within days, an entire colony collapses. Habitat loss: where will bees live? Another crucial factor in the decline of bees is the destruction of their natural habitats. The growth of cities, deforestation and the expansion of intensive agriculture have eliminated areas where bees find food and shelter. Forests, flower fields and even small urban gardens are disappearing, replaced by monoculture plantations or urbanized areas that do not offer the resources necessary for these seeds to survive. Without flowers for nectar and pollen, bees cannot provide themselves with food or feed their larvae. This leads to an increasingly accelerated population decline. Climate change: the climate is against them. Climate change is also drastically altering these environments. Rising temperatures, irregular rainfall, and extreme weather events directly impact the availability of flowers and food for these insects. With increasingly high temperatures, some plant species bloom out of season, leaving bees without food during critical periods. Furthermore, excessive heat waves can be fatal to entire colonies. Another serious problem caused by the climate is the increase in bee regions in some areas and their location in other areas where they are not adapted, making their survival even more difficult. Parasites and diseases, the invisible enemy. Bees also face a silent battle against parasites and diseases. One of the most lethal is the Varroa destructor mite, a small parasite that feeds on bees' blood, transmitting viruses and weakening entire colonies. Another major problem is the emergence of fungal and bacterial diseases that attack larvae in adults, often spread through bees' own contact with contaminated flowers. With the excessive use of pesticides and other chemical substances, bees are also losing their natural resistance against these invisible enemies, becoming even more vulnerable. What happens if the bees disappear? If bees continue to disappear at this rate, the consequences for humanity will be catastrophic. Without pollination, many agricultural crops will be severely affected, resulting in a drastic drop in food production. Fruits, vegetables, oilseeds, and even coffee are among the crops that depend on bees. Without them, these products will become scarce and extremely expensive. Furthermore, the disturbance of bee society will directly affect biodiversity, harming the lives of other insects, animals, and even the maintenance of forests and natural ecosystems. What can we do to protect bees? Despite the worrying scenario, there is still hope. Small actions can make a big difference in preserving bees and, consequently, in the planet's food security. Avoid using pesticides in gardens and crops. Plant native flowers and trees that provide food for bees. Support organic and sustainable agriculture. Build small shelters for solitary bees. Spread information about the importance of bees. Each of us can make a difference. Protecting bees means ensuring a future with food, biodiversity, and environmental balance. The question is, are we willing to act before it is too late? How can we save bees? Practical solutions. Bees are at risk, but there is still hope. If each of us does our part, we can reverse this scenario and guarantee the survival of these pollinators that are so important for the balance of nature and food production. But what can we do, in practice, to help? In this chapter, we will explore some of the most effective actions to protect bees and ensure they continue to play their essential role in the ecosystem. Avoid the use of pesticides and chemicals. Pesticides, especially neonicotinoid, are one of the biggest villains when we talk about the extinction of bees. Even small amounts of these products can affect the memory, orientation, and health of pollinators. If you have a garden, a yard, or even some potted plants, opt for natural control methods. Some alternative options include: use garlic, pepper, and neutral soap as natural repellents. Introduce ladybugs and praying mantises, which are natural predictors of predictions. Make crop selections to avoid insect infestations. If you must use pesticides, choose organic products and only apply them in the late afternoon or evening, when the bees have returned to the hives. Plant flowers and trees that feed bees. Bees need flowers to feed, and a lack of floral diversity is harming their populations. To help them, one of the simplest and most practical ways is to cultivate plants rich in nectar and pollen. If you have space, consider plant species such as lavender, sunflower, basil, rosemary, clover, hibiscus. In addition to feeding the bees, these plants bring beauty and perfume to the environment. Even in apartments, it is possible to make a difference by creating small gardens on balconies and windows. Build solitary bee shelters. Not all bees live in hives. Some species, such as solitary bees, make their nests in hollow logs, holes in the ground, and other natural cavities. To help these bees, you can build a bee hotel using simple materials like perforated pieces of wood, bamboo, and bricks with holes in them. Just leave them in a place protected from rain and wind, and you'll soon see bees using the space to breed. These small shelters are especially important in urban areas, where solitary bees have difficulty finding safe places to nest. 4. Support organic and sustainable agriculture. The current model of intensive agriculture has been one of the biggest threats to bees, due to the use of pesticides and the destruction of natural habitats. If possible, choose to buy organic foods and support farmers who use sustainable techniques. This way, you contribute to the preservation of pollinators and encourage agricultural practices that respect the environment. Another simple action is to prefer products from small local beekeepers, who raise bees responsibly and without exploiting the hives aggressively. Educate others about the importance of bees. Many people are still unaware of the importance of bees and the threats they face. Spreading knowledge is one of the most powerful ways to change this reality. You can help by sharing information on social networks, talking to friends and family, and even supporting environmental education projects. If you have children or live with children, teach them from an early age about the importance of bees and how to protect them. New generations can grow up with a more ecological mindset and committed to protecting nature. 6. Pressure governments and companies for protection policies. In addition to individual actions, large-scale changes are permitted to ensure the protection of bees. These include stricter laws against the use of contract pesticides, incentives for sustainable agriculture, and the creation of protected areas for pollinators. You can contribute by signing petitions, supporting NGOs that work for environmental preservation, and demanding companies to adopt more responsible practices. The future of bees, and our own food security, depends on effective public policies and the commitment of society as a whole. Small actions, big impacts. Saving bees is not an impossible task. Small individual actions, when added together, can have a big impact on preserving these pollinating abilities. Whether it's planting flowers, avoiding pesticides, educating others, or championing change, each of us can make a difference. The fate of bees, and the planet, is in our hands. The question remains, what are you going to do today to help? Bees are more than just insects flying from flower to flower. They are guardians of life, responsible for pollinating much of the food that reaches our table. Without them, we will face an uncertain future, with fewer fruits, fewer vegetables, and an unbalanced ecosystem. But despite the challenges, there is still hope. We have seen throughout this documentary that the threats to bees are great, but that there are also practical and accessible solutions. Each of us can do something to observe them. Now that you know the importance of bees and how they are being threatened, what are you going to do about it? You can start today. Plant flowers, avoid pesticides, support sustainable producers, and spread the message. Small actions, when multiplied, can save millions of bees. And if you want to delve even deeper into this topic, learn new ways to help and become part of the bee protection movement, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss the next content. Together, we can ensure that bees continue their essential work, and that future generations inherit a world rich in biodiversity, cores, and flavors. The future of bees depends on us.